attention.
Give you my heart.
I thought you said you had him.
The GPS system has his position within 4 feet. You don't have him in your car?
No, Abby, I do not. Okay, I got him now.
You forgot to turn it on.
Welcome to Sums Up, a channel about how to survive in the online jungle. How many people do you think go missing every year? Well, last year, over 500,000 people went missing in the United States alone. If all of these people were to gather in one place, you'd probably have a city the size of Atlanta or Sacramento. Now, this is
So as I was editing this video, I just noticed something random, so pardon the interruption, but I noticed on that chart that he showed, now I guess we have to assume that the chart is correct, but it does show a really sharp increase in the number of missing persons between the years of 1990 and 1998, just in only 8 years. It goes from like 600 and something thousand to like over 900,000. That's a really big increase in such a short span of time. I don't know at the moment what the reasons would be for that, but it is interesting that also that it falls very sharply after 1998, which I'm guessing a lot of that owes to the the existence or the fact that the internet at least went public. It existed before that, but it was around 1998 that it became widely adopted. It was public before that. It existed before that, but I would say around 96 to 98 is when it became, really widely adopted by the average person. And then, of course, not too long after that, you had things like smartphones coming out and whatnot. And I'm sure the fact that there are a lot less people that either go missing or at least stay missing nowadays is probably has a lot to do with our available technology.
Shocking figure. But just take a look at this graph. As it turns out, in 2021, it's a lot harder to actually disappear than, say, a quarter of a century ago. In 1996, 980,000 people never returned
I'm guessing
home.
smartphones have something to do with that.
That's double today's figure. Why? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. Nowadays, we leave much more of a trace, and by and large, it's thanks to these things. To show just how little privacy there is in our lives, I actually want to conduct a little bit of an experiment. I want to figure out how to disappear completely and never be found again.
Yeah, I kind of don't even know if that's truly possible. I mean, maybe like in theory, but with any practicality, I don't think it's truly possible to disappear in today's world. I mean, unless your plan of disappearing literally includes hiding under a rock and, of course, never interacting with any form of digital technology. But I don't think that's in the cards for all but a very eccentric few.
Actually, before I embark on disappearing from the digital world, I'd actually like to clear up a few things first. Number one, and most importantly, I'm not wanted by Interpol, and I don't owe any money to the banks or to the mafia. I'm a normal Brit with a good reputation, and my finances are fairly in order. It's just that the time has come to change my life entirely. So, no, MI6 won't be chasing me once I disappear, and I won't be faking my own death. So, I don't think the police will be that interested in me either. However, my family might actually hire a team of private detectives to hunt me down. And that's who I'm going to be hiding from, the private detectives. Shit. In fact, if I were to disappear in Japan, for instance, there would actually be dozens of legitimate companies that would help me get the job done. Pretty strange. I mean, for a modest fee, they'd effectively help me move out in secret and come up with a new identity and biography.
Could always just join the French Foreign Legion.
Thousands of Japanese men and women vanish without a trace.
They'll give you a new identity and everything.
Unfortunately, I'll be going this road alone, without the help of any backstreet Japanese agencies. And before the new me enters the world, I'll effectively have to erase as many traces of my former self as I physically can. All of us reveal countless amounts of data about ourselves, where we go, what we do, what we enjoy, as well as our wrongdoings. Practically everything that we've ever photographed, downloaded, supported, criticized, commented upon, or even ignored is actually reflected in our digital history. And one of the most important components here is that the data about us is actually publicly available via social media, and that's really easy to check. There's actually a website called Delete Me, and you can use this website to enter your full name and the city in which you reside. And in just a few minutes, you'll be met with a very, very unpleasant surprise. Now, the good news is that this check is basically free to conduct. The bad news is that, well, first of all, the data is no longer stored on social media platforms, blogs, or websites. Instead, it now resides in the databases of data brokers. You can request that a data broker deletes your data, right?
Request.
But this process is long and difficult, and there are actually no guarantees that the data will actually be deleted from the systems. So, with these two things in mind, I've actually chosen a different route. Now, I'm not going to be deleting my social media profiles or writing to data brokers. Instead, I'll actually be tainting my existing personal data. Basically, I'll dilute all of the information.
It's a better
about myself
approach.
with various kinds of spam.
You
for
can
instance.
fight
I
forever
will start
trying to get
adding
your
absolute
information out of all
randomness
those
to my friends
databases,
list,
or
and
you
then
could
I'll
just
add
practice
the
what
friends of those
what
randomers,
he's
and then I'll start joining random groups on
doing
Facebook,
here.
or
This is called
cramming
data
my bio
poisoning.
with a range of inexplicable
FYI.
hobbies and interests. I'll also start reposting things that in no way reflect who I am or what I do, and
that's
I'll fill my photo galleries with
probably
faces of people
overkill.
who don't even exist, right?
Yeah,
this is
that's a
all
good one.
effectively spamming my profiles. Of course, intelligence agencies would likely have the resources to determine
Biggest thing
which
you'd wanna
data
do
about
is,
me is true and which
in my
data
opinion,
is
is
fake.
change the information
But
in your
that's
profile.
not
So
who I'm
change the
writing
name,
for. Remember,
change
an
address,
ordinary
change
private detective
whatever to
would
something
only have access to
fictitious.
publicly available information, such as my social media profile, which I'm spamming
Same
heavily.
with
And
an
if you
email
actually want to
account
visualize
and,
how difficult
so
it will
on
be
and
to
whatnot.
delete your data from these social media platforms, well, backgroundchecks.org can help you with that. See, on this site, you'll basically see a list of the social media platforms where deleting your data will be the most difficult, if not impossible. And if you don't plan on disappearing, this site will give you something to consider next time you decide to create a new social media profile. So similar to what I did with my social media profiles, I'll be intentionally spamming my email. I can actually sign up to a large number of dating websites, for instance. Maybe I'll launch some free ads or create some websites on Tilda where I'll basically offer random stuff for really low prices. The point is that I'll be using my existing email as the contact in these endeavors. And before I truly disappear, I'll reply
Not
to
a
as
terrible,
many
not a
of
bad
these
idea,
resulting
but
emails as I
probably
can
unnecessary
to
to
create
do all
this
that.
strange backlog of random emails, right? Not only this, but on the day of my disappearance, I'll be maxing out the number of password reset attempts on my accounts. And additionally, I'll remove any recovery phone numbers or email addresses that are actually attached to them. I'll also change the answers to my recovery questions with absolute gibberish that is impossible to memorize either on my part or for anyone else to figure out. The idea here is to lock the door, take out the key, throw it in a lake, and forget about it forever. So let's talk about your favorite devices, right?
Yeah, and then somebody
Smartphones,
goes magnet
laptops,
fishing and finds your
tablets.
key.
These guys can become your worst enemies as you try to escape from your former life. Let's start with my laptop. Now, regardless of how attached I may be to my old trusty notebook here, I'm sadly going to have to leave it behind. My computer is effectively just as unique as any person on the planet. I mean, the processor, the hard disk, and memory cards are unique
That's
identifiers of the computer itself.
Not quite
And they
accurate.
are accessible to
He's referring to
programs that have
fingerprinting,
their
but
serial numbers.
hardware fingerprinting
Therefore, every
specifically.
computer
But
leaves a trace in that one way
to
or
say that
another
a device
means
is
the
just
computer
as
can be
unique as
identified. So I've
no,
got two options.
there's not enough
Either destroy
identifiers
my
on a
favorite
device.
laptop,
Now there is
or
things like your MAC address,
create a false
things like
footprint.
that, but I
think I'll go with
mean
the second
the
option.
hardware
And
fingerprint
the first thing I
of
need
the
to do in this case is to
it's
install
not as
a
unique
bunch
as
of
people think.
crypto-related software, including guides
And you could
instructions,
spoof MAC
all
addresses,
related
so.
to Bitcoin speculation. And I'm actually going to have to buy some Bitcoin to get this done. Why? Well, I have to generate this false market activity by moving various cryptocurrencies back and forth from different wallets and things. But at the same time, I'll actually start researching various cryptocurrency websites and inquiring about mining equipment, so as to give off the impression that I'm actually interested in crypto.
That sounds expensive.
Now,
and
this will be the false motive for my
probably
escape.
not really
Even for
necessary,
high-level
but
law
okay.
enforcement, the crypto market can seem not only abstract and criminal, but flat out strange. So just let them think that I ran into some problems paying off some crypto debts, right? And I just took off somewhere. I mean, this would be
I
enough
get
to
the
divert
logic
police,
there,
for
and
instance.
his reasoning
But
is sound.
a private detective, on the other hand,
But
might investigate
there's other
this.
ways you can
That's
plant a
why
false
I will
flag
be
that are a
leaving
lot
my old
easier.
laptop behind. I'll change the password to something really easy. One of my parents' birthdays would work fine, so they can get in. Perhaps I'll even Google a few places which I certainly don't plan on visiting, and I'll spend some time on home rental websites, for instance, in those regions. I'll even look up a few bus schedules, some shopping malls, and a few maps of those regions. And while I'm at it, I'll take a look and see how many CCTV cameras there are in each city. And thankfully, I won't be going to China or London as a result, where the amount of surveillance cameras is just truly shocking.
Probably not a good idea if you're trying to disappear. Definitely not.
Now, my plan of escape currently only exists in my head. And I'm not going to research any aspects of my escape on any of my devices, or even things like a public computer at the library, because, you know, someone might take interest in what's on your screen, for instance. Instead, I'll probably go around some
Actually, the
local
library may not be a bad
take a look
idea.
at some guides into
I
other
mean, if
countries
it's a
and
library
cities,
that you
and
yourself
then
have
on the day
never
of my
visited
escape,
before,
I'll
and
just pick one of those
if you want to get
destinations at random,
fancy,
right?
go to a city,
Randomness is
go to a new
indeed
city
part of
that
the
you
plan.
don't actually
Now,
live in.
when it comes to my dear
Public
smartphone,
computer, that
I
actually
certainly
may
have
not
a
be a
lot of
bad
work to
idea.
do before the day
Just, I mean,
of my
obviously
escape.
wipe
I mean,
the
first of all, I have to
history
learn how
before
to
you leave that
forget my
computer
phone
and all
regularly,
that,
both at work and at home. The reason for that is because telecom companies
know.
keep track of the movements of their customers.
I don't think it
Therefore,
would be
when
a
I'm
bad
walking
idea to use
around
a
with
public
my phone
computer
in
for
my
that
pocket,
kind of
I'm being
research.
tracked constantly. And this doesn't matter if I have the latest iPhone or an old Nokia brick. Any phone regularly triangulates your position. Now, accessing this information is, of course, very difficult. I mean, even if you're law enforcement, you'll still have to jump through several hoops and rings of bureaucratic hell.
They're
in order
supposed
to
to jump through several hoops.
Nonetheless, anonymous cellular tracking data is commercially
They don't
available.
always.
And all of this data is collected by these various applications installed on your phone, including maps and online shopping apps, for instance. Technically speaking, this data is indeed anonymous. However, if this data reveals a pattern, it is theoretically possible to trace it back to me personally. I mean, think about it, right? How many people in your building commute to the exact same place that you do every single day? Were your neighbors at the same company Christmas party that you were at last year? Do you see what I'm getting at here? I mean, if you regularly visit the same 4 or 5 places, you're effectively creating a unique digital footprint, and this can be traced right back to you.
Almost knocked my tripod over.
Pinning it is indeed anonymous. Now, it is enough to know where one lives, works, and has lunch, or even shops to figure out who they are, just based on anonymous cellular tracking data. The scariest part is that
logically
it's actually
you could,
perfectly legal,
or
and
theoretically
not
more
too
like,
difficult
you
to
could
access this sort of
potentially
data.
determine who
Recently,
that
a couple
person
of
is.
journalists from the New York Times demonstrated this. And obviously, for
Makes
the private
sense.
detective hunting you down, accessing this data should be a piece of cake. Therefore,
Yeah,
in
it's
the
a matter
lead
of
up to my escape,
correlation,
I'll
I
have to
would
follow
think.
one important rule. I'll have to regularly leave my telephone behind. And I'll actually use the time away from my phone to do kind of important stuff, like regularly withdrawing small amounts of money from random ATMs around the city. But not too much at once, obviously, so as to not raise any red flags with the bank. So, if I stick to withdrawing small sums at random intervals, I should be in the clear. Also, at some point while I'm away from my phone, I'll need to buy a simple old school cell phone. You know, the kind with actual buttons, right? And a new SIM card. But whatever I do, I cannot turn it on or even charge it. I can't even take out the phone from the box until I'm at least 200 miles into my escape.
You leave your phone behind
no
places,
point
or you
ever
throw it
should
in a
my
Faraday
old phone
bag.
and my
That
new
also
phone
works. I
be
believe that's
turned
what they're
on
referred
at the
to
same
as.
time in the same place.
Think
On the day
Faraday
of my
cage,
escape,
but
I will remove the SIM
convenient
card
little
and
travel
SD card
bag.
of my phone and literally
Completely
throw
box
it
wireless
into the
signal.
nearest lake. If anything, the pond at the local park should suffice, or at the very least a dirty river might be all right as well. And then I'll take the SIM card and SD card and throw them into a sewer drain somewhere, right? No one's going to find this.
I don't know, for me personally, I'd incinerate it, but alright. Hit it with some acid.
So also, I'll have to say goodbye to the bank, because now I'm
Faraday
part of a
bags,
very
that's what those are
small
called.
minority of people these days who don't use banking services. My transactions now on will be on a purely
Cash or
cash basis.
Bitcoin.
And the plus side, it will be much easier to pay and deal with
Cash or
landlords,
Monero.
and I really won't be leaving any
Bitcoin.
trace in that respect. I'll also probably keep some modest savings in crypto. And even if I run into problems with paying for stuff in Bitcoin, I can always use the Bitcoin to buy electronics, which I can then, in turn, pawn for cash. And
Seems
this
a really
point,
inefficient way to
however,
do that,
causes
but
me a
okay.
bit of a problem. I mean, how do I keep the passwords to my crypto wallet secure? And how do I ensure that no one can make use of them if I lose them, for instance?
216-420-1989.
Love this show.
And that little lady is pi to 1,000 places.
Well, here, I'll follow the principle that the best hiding place is in plain sight. So, to that avail, I'll purchase a bunch of neutral photographs into which I'll disguise the keys to my crypto wallets with the help of steganography. Now, this method is based on the idea that information is not only encrypted, but it's also hidden from plain sight.
Yeah, you
Text
can
be
do
inserted
that,
into a
but
file,
again,
such as a photo or a video, for instance.
is it
I mean,
necessary?
Here, look at
It
this.
sounds like some
First glance,
overkill.
this looks like an ordinary photo, right? That's no different to this one. But in reality, I've actually inserted multiple pages from this very script into the first one. Who would have thought that from such an ordinary picture you could extract so much
It's actually not
information?
that easy. It's not that hard, I mean, to figure out. You're going to increase the file size. Someone can, you know, you're going to increase the file size by adding extra data. But
Now we are finding
anyway.
ourselves really at the dawn of a new world. Digital technologies now have the ability to create unique portraits out of all of us. Researchers have learned to identify individual drivers based on how they execute turns, for instance, in the manner in which they turn the steering wheel, and even how they apply pressure to the pedals. Advanced recognition systems can identify us based on how we type by analyzing the pauses in between the keys we press. And I still haven't scratched the surface of biometrics as well as face and voice recognition systems that we'll actually get to in one of the upcoming videos. Now, as I say goodbye, I'd like you to think about living in a world with no privacy whatsoever. Maybe
I
it's
mean,
not too late
truthfully, if you want to
run
disappear
away
in this
start
modern
all over
world, you
again.
got to pretty much leave technology behind, not just leave the world behind. Go find a rock and live under a rock, maybe.